Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to this year's State of the School Address. We are incredibly grateful that all of you took time out of your busy schedules to attend. Specifically, we'd like to thank our board members for being here. I see Board Chair McKinney, Dr. Carol Temple, Ms. Courtney Waters. Did any other board members come in after we were seated? We also want to welcome our constituent board members. We saw several of them. Would you stand and be recognized, please? I see Dr. George Temple, Mrs. Pat Klein. Thank you for being here. We also want to thank our municipalities, our partners, the City of North Charleston, the City of Charleston, the Town of Mount Pleasant, for being here today and offering their support for our children across this great county. Dear to my heart are those teachers, principals, and students who are here this morning. We know this is an incredibly busy time of the year, yet exciting for all of you as we celebrate the accomplishments that you've been able to garner throughout the year with hard work and dedication. I found myself overcome with emotion earlier this week as one of our trustees read a proclamation celebrating the class of 2023, as I myself, for the first time, have a graduate in a high school here in Charleston. And as I reflected on Jenna's tenure here in Charleston, I realized that without the great people around me and without the great people around her, her success simply would not have been possible. And that includes all of you who are here today, the principals who've given their time and energy. Your job really is a 26-hour-a-day job. The teachers who give tirelessly, the board members who make really hard decisions on behalf of children, and the community members who wrap around and support. So thank you for being here today as we reflect on a great year and as we think about the challenges that lie ahead of us as we embark on a new year full of possibilities for all of Charleston's children. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and for the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled
was beautiful. Thank you. You may be seated.
You matter because each of you matter.
This is an exciting time for me. Like I said, a letter to all kindergarten students in the Charleston County School District, called 3,422, asking them, we're going to ask them 3 questions on what are their dreams when they leave kindergarten, going into first grade, and then what are their dreams when they become big kids, then when they're teenagers, and then what are their dreams as adults when they become grown-ups, so that we can support them as they go to elementary school, so that when they get into middle school, those dreams are still alive, and they have support systems to be able to help us navigate through middle school, high school, so that they can also meet their dreams.
Listen to you, and we may do some fun things together, and then we'll come back and join your families and share a little bit about what we talked about.
Dreamers are going to go with Ms. Allison, and dream makers are going to stay here. We're going to have a great conversation about how we continue to support the dreamers.
When I grow up, I want to be a pilot of a big boat, police officer, so I can eat the tuna. I want to be a police because go faster than the speed of a pilot. I want to be a professional baseball player. I'm a teacher.
And we talked about what you need from your school to help those dreams come true. Now I'd like to hear about what you need from your family.
My dream, my mom made my dream because she threw it up on my dream. Be a police officer, hugs like this.
Anything you want to do, and no judgment.
Always have them to be in contact with one person that they can trust and go to besides you.
We want to use it, add to that, and hold them to what we do. And we talk about, like I said, we talk about mentors so that we can build a bank of people that can potentially help them reach the dreams that they should want to share.
And I will pay attention to your dreams. I'll make sure that the adults in Charleston County community pay attention to your dreams.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone, and thanks to all the students who have helped start this program off today. I'm really surprised about a couple of things in this video. One is, at my age, my ability to not only get on the floor with the kindergartners, but also to be able to get up. So it's been quite a challenge. But if you've ever been in a room of 5-year-olds, and you know how enthusiastic they can be, how the level of optimism that they have, how wide-eyed they are, how they are able to, when someone tells them a story, you saw the hugs in the video, they're able to hug each other. And so they have these huge dreams and thoughts about their future. And when I ask kindergartners across the district, what are their dreams for the future, it's amazing that they are able to think that far in advance. And so you heard some of the ones right here. One little girl says she wanted to be a boat pilot. We have people who want to be Navy pilots. Now, I'm an Air Force guy, so I wish I had said Air Force, but Navy pilot. We had police officers, of course, firemen. We had dancers. We had one little girl wanted to be a fashion designer in Paris, and even one little girl wanted to be an activist. So I want to frame my address this morning, not so much in the state of CCSD, but the state of the community, because I believe firmly that in order for our children to reach their dreams, that we as a community need to create what I call a pre-K to 12 ecosystem to support them. For example, 2 weeks before this video was shot, the team and I were down at Jane Edwards Elementary School down in Edisto, so thank you, Ms. Logan. And we were in another circle with our kids there, and one little boy said he wanted to be a mime. And so what Tanya McIntyre did, she reached out to Charleston Stage, and she was able to get Charleston Stage to give the family a scholarship for this little boy for this coming summer to spend a week in camp for acting. And so that's an idea, an example of a community entity supporting the work that we want to do. Another example from the same circle down at Jane Edwards was one little girl wanted to be a singer, and so she's going to be with the Carolina studio, learn how to sing. I won't spend too much time this morning talking about data, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the encouraging data that we are seeing from the academic side. So I was talking with Buffy Roberts. She gave me some of the spring data that we had and fall data from last year. And so for example, with our KRA data from the fall of 2020, the kindergartners that are ready once they go into school to be able to learn improved from 42.9% to 53.1% this last fall. So from fall 2020, fall 22, 53.1%. And when I first started this job as superintendent, I was always talking with principals. One principal I spoke with, Dottie Brown, indicated to me that, Mr. Kennedy, we have far too many of our kindergarten kids coming into school not ready to learn. And so what we've done there, we've expanded early childhood learning so to make sure that we can address those needs. We have also, working with Kim Foxworth, figuring out how to get staff in the early childhood learning to become certified teachers. Another data point that Buffett gave to me, which is really, really exciting, is the iReady interim assessments from this spring comparing to the growth that we had from last fall. And what, as you know, those of you who know Buffy, she likes to talk in data charts. And so she has this quadrant up in the right-hand corner. It indicates high growth and high performance. So all of our all of our K through 5th grade classes, schools, are up in that right-hand quadrant. And the increase is 24.1 percentage points from based on fall 22 to the spring of 23. Tremendous growth. When she talked with our Ready people, they tell her that this is incredible. Typically, they don't see those types of growth. Even in the 6th grade, where we see locally and across the country, there's a dip from the fall to the spring. We had a 6.9 percentage point growth in 6th grade reading. So we had the same type of progress in the middle schools in reading and similar progress in math. And then with the high schools, last year we had a 10.3 percentage point increase in the number of students, percentage of students that are passing by a grade of C or more on the end of course Algebra 1 exams. And Buffett's telling me today that the indicators for this year, although the data's not out yet, we can't release it yet, that data is also showing progress, trending positively. And so one of the other things with Dottie Brown told me that even with kindergartners that are coming into school on grade level, there's a tendency for those kindergartners over a period of 2 to 3 years for their scores to actually go down. That is a decrease, and she said to me that indicated that there are some concerns and problems with the district's instructional practices. And so one of the things that we've done there, earlier this year, we invested $3.6 million in the science of reading to train our elementary staff on letters training to make sure that we can address the instructional practices. On the state schools, this year we had 4 schools come off of the state state test. So two of the acceleration schools, so Jackie Haynes and her staff, congratulations, and thank you for the work that you did to get the North Charleston Elementary School and the Morningside Middle School and North Charleston Elementary School off of the CSI. And then over on the island, St. John's High School, Mr. Joyner, his first year, they no longer have any designations from the state, as well as Ms. Hart at the Mary Ford Early Learning Center. So these are all great indicators, but we still have a ways to go. And the state of the community can best, I think, be assessed by clearly looking at our children from a historical standpoint and looking at them from where they are now and where we think we need to go. So for the next couple of minutes, I want to talk about this historical piece, looking back to the mid-20th century and where we have come since then. So in around 1950, the state of South Carolina enacted the first sales tax program to raise funds to create what they call the equalization schools. This was to create schools for African American schools so that we can ensure that segregation was still the way that we educated children. And that lasted until about the mid-1960s, and then the state legislators created the Act of Consolidation, which is Act 340, which created the constituent districts here in Charleston County. That act was challenged in court, and the judge that ruled on that indicated that the intent of that law was not to segregate students, but he went on to say that, in fact, it was de facto desegregation because it created this system of segregation that we still live under today. And then the next point, in 1998, Harvard sent a team down, then just in the Senate, the board members and some of the leading leaders here in the county commissioned a study by Harvard, and they took a look at the Charleston County School District academic performance in depth, and they produced a 199-page report in 1998, and it confirmed some of the things that we're seeing today. In that report, they said that if we stayed on the path that we were on, we would end up in what the report called socioeconomic isolation. And that's some of the struggles that we're dealing with now today. Going a little bit further and closer to the current time, in 2006 to 2013, we saw a steady growth, academic growth, for all of our students across the board and all the demographics. So we had steady growth, and there are some factors that were in place. We had a common curriculum. We had a focus on data. We had, when I talk about this community support, we had an interfaith roundtable, and we had structures like the parent university, and we made investments to make sure that we had those systems and structures in place to support our students. And I've recreated the interfaith roundtable, and we've been working with many of the interfaith leaders, of the faith leaders, throughout the county over the last 6 months or so. So I want to thank them publicly for the work that they're doing to help shape our pre-K to 12 ecosystem. And then after 2013, there were two disruptions in the system. One, we had a change in leadership. Those structures and systems that were in place that led to student growth were, for the most part, dismantled. And because of that, we started to see a decline in student academic achievement. And that decline continued up into the pandemic, and we all know what happened during the pandemic, the challenges that students had. But one thing we did learn during the pandemic, that we need to make sure that we had a better focus on how we addressed our engagement with parents. So, for example, we created at the beginning of the pandemic what we call learning pods, these small learning communities, in order for kids that needs to be attended to. So we create these learning pods, we advertise them, and we assume that parents were simply going to take advantage of them. But what happened, we found that parents would not take advantage of them. And so what we did was we assembled teams, we sent them out into the neighborhoods, knocking on doors, speaking with parents, and getting parents to understand what the importance was of being able to enroll their kids in these small learning communities. And because we decided to to proactively engage with the parents, then we saw gains and we saw kids being enrolled in these learning pods. And then shortly after that, I was down at Sanders Clyde Elementary School speaking with Janice Malone, the principal there. And she was talking, and so when I talk about the pre-K to 12 ecosystem, it's not my original idea. When I was talking with Ms. Malone, she started talking with me about what it would look like if all the schools in D20 downtown were in a feeder pattern and there was support from the community. And she described what that support looked like. And so I took notes, and she'll tell you today, she saw me writing all these notes, didn't think much of it. But what came out of that was the D20 Collaborative Principal Program that's funded by the ESSA funds. And in those use of those dollars, there are a cadre of people that have been hired as family engagement specialists, and they spend all of their time, all their working time, in houses, in homes, meeting with parents, trying to understand what their needs are, and then connecting with the leaders of the collaborative to make sure that they're able to go out into the community and create these supports. So if over the course of decades we do not attend to the needs of our children, the human toll can be heartbreaking. So you saw the video how lively the 5-year-olds are. Now, I also have engaged with middle school kids up here in North Charleston, meeting with them in a mentor type role, and I was just astounded by the fact that so many of our middle school kids who are not reading on grade level have lost this ability after just a short period of time. 5-year-olds, very much in tune of what the future looks like for them, and then a short 7 or 8 years later, they have lost that ability to dream about the future. They cannot articulate those dreams. And for me, that is, that's an attack on the human spirit. And I want to make sure that we're able to address that. So what drives that? What are the series of factors that lead small children to resign themselves to despair, that forces them into a mindset of that there's not hope for the future, that illuminates no path to a bright future? Well, I certainly do not have the answers to all of those questions, but I do know if our history is an accurate barometer, and if we as a community do not find the answers to these questions, we know what the future holds for many of our children. When I first came into K-12, it was here in CCSD in 2004. I left in 2007, and I returned in 2018. And what shocked me when I returned in 2018 was that the same neighborhoods, the same schools, same families, different generation, that we were working to improve academic outcomes were the same ones in 2007 when I left, were the same ones that we were working to do the same things with when I returned in 2018. And in fact, they're the same ones that we were working on today. When I was here then, Dr. Goodlow Johnson, who was the superintendent, she had brought to this community this African proverb. And so last February, I was in a meeting with a young lady. She's a family advocate at Simmons Pinckney downtown. Her name is Taika Grant, and she does some work in the East Side Community Development Center. And so she and that team asked to meet with me. And so we met, and in the course of the meeting, she said, Mr. Kennedy, you know, when you and Dr. Goodlow Johnson were here back in earlier, y'all used to say, how the children. So the African proverb is, if the answer is the children are well, that means that the community is well. And so Ms. Grant went on to say, Mr. Kennedy, the children that you all were asking that question of back in 2004, 2005, are now the parents of the students that we're still asking that question of. So her point was that we had not made enough progress, and for many of our children, primarily she was speaking about minority students. But at least you think I'm speaking of only of our minority students. Let's look at the gifted and talented enrollment of our schools. We have contracted with Dr. Carrie Wright. She's used to be the superintendent of the state of Mississippi, superintendent of the state of Mississippi did a tremendous job in improving the academic outcomes of kids there. She was here a few weeks ago, and she was visiting a number of schools. And so a series of schools that she went to were some of our higher performing schools. And what she reported to Anita and me was that in these schools, she saw the data that showed that a number of those students, 30%, 40%, were deemed to be gifted and talented. And she was puzzled about, although the schools were performing on grade level, she was puzzled if so many of the kids were gifted and talented, why were not the grades, the assessments higher? And what she discovered was that we have students that have capabilities to work here, but they are being taught at this level. And she said that if you're going to make progress, then you need to be able to make sure that you identify the level of instructions that children need and be able to provide that instruction. So it doesn't make any difference where you are on that spectrum in terms of your academic achievement. If you're at the lower end of that spectrum, you need to teach kids at grade level. And if the kids are at the higher end of that spectrum and they're gifted and talented, they need to be taught at a higher level. So this service for kids across the board in some cases. So on our current path, I mentioned the state of Mississippi. It used to be, as we all know, there used to be the saying, and when we're looking at data, thank God for Mississippi, because they were always at the bottom. So when Dr. Wright went to Mississippi in 2014 as a superintendent, the state was 50th in the country on academic achievement. And when she left June of last year, the state had moved up to 35th. And so what we've tried to do here in CCSD is to understand what she has, what were the strategies that she used in Mississippi to make such gains, and we've worked to replicate those strategies. One of them is clear student outcome based goals. So we have a set of goals. They're pretty clear. They're all student outcome based. Alignment with individual school goals with board goals. So we have the district-wide goals. We have worked very closely with principals, and principals, I really appreciate your work. I really thank you for your work. That data I presented a few minutes ago that Buffy talked about, the growth, is obviously is not doable, or was not doable without your work. And so you have aligned your goals with the district goals around reading, around Algebra 1 math, and college and career readiness, and it is showing. Another thing that Dr. Wright did in Mississippi was a big focus on early childhood learning. And hence, I talked a few minutes ago about our expansion of classroom availability for early childhood learning and other things that we're doing there. A fourth thing that she did was make sure that within individual school districts that they had a common curriculum for reading in ELA across the district, as opposed to individual schools having their own curriculum. And so we've done that here with the EL curriculum. Some of the work, some of the progress that I mentioned a few minutes ago was based on the implementation with fidelity of that EL curriculum. And I want to thank those teachers that when they first went into the EL arena, knowing that and discovering that the work was hard, it was difficult, it was new, that they stuck it out. And because they stuck it out, they learned, and the results show for themselves, for itself in the school data and the kids' data. And then the last thing that I want to mention that we're replicating here in CCSD that she did over in Mississippi is a real focus on the science of reading, teaching teachers and other staff how to teach reading. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that we did $3.6 million of investment in that earlier this year. So if I had a call to action, it would be sort of like this. When I first came into K-12 in 2004, I always considered myself as a person whose only job was to support other adults who were focused, the adults that were focused on supporting children. I never thought of myself as a person who would actually engage with children. And then when I came in this job as superintendent, it was like, I mean, it was incredible. I remember, it's almost like, it's almost transformational. I remember the day it happened. So I saw Ms. Brubaker here earlier. She's the principal at North Charleston Elementary School. So last winter of last year, I was on a school visit there. And so I got there, and she says, she's laying out, you know, the program, what I'm going to do while I'm there. And she said, we're going to do X, do X, do X, and then you're going to talk with, present to a group of a fifth grade class. And I got nervous. I mean, I got really nervous. But what happened, I got in front of that fifth grade class in Mr. Bruce Baker's school, and I was like, this is incredible. They asked me questions, I talked, and it was just back and forth. And one of the girls asked me, said, will you come back next year and teach? Well, I didn't make it back, but I you know, it's like perhaps had I started off teaching, I would be, you know, in a different mode right now. And then later, when we got into the Dreamers Circles, I was still really, really nervous. And Vanessa Denny can attest to this. The first circle I did with the kids, with the kindergartners, Vanessa had to spend about 15 minutes with those children, making sure that they were ready for me, and because I was so nervous to get on the floor with them. And then once I got down there and popped right back up, by the way, I was amazed. And so the circles I've done with kindergarten since then have been extremely incredible. So what I've learned is that, again, 5-year-old children, they're full of energy. They are able to articulate what they want for their future. Now, those futures, those articulation of those dreams will change over time. But what we do not want to change over time is that level of enthusiasm that they have at 5 years old. We want to see that level of enthusiasm when they're 13 and 14-year-olds and all going on into high school. So as such, there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration to fully develop a Charleston County-wide structure to answer what I deem the most pressing question before us: who is responsible for the well-being of our children? And I'm hoping that's going to be in this K-12, pre-K to 12 ecosystem that I hope to create. So I will end with this. Back in, I think, January or February of this year, I was at the Cooper River CAS one Saturday morning at some event, school district event, and there was a gentleman that was addressing a small group of people, and I heard him say that the state of South Carolina is pregnant with economic opportunities. And he went on to mention that if we don't attend to the needs of so many of our kids that we're not doing well by now, then those kids and their families will miss out on those opportunities as the state continues to give birth to those economic opportunities. And it reminded me of the early days of education reform in this country when we had the No Child Left Behind work. So this year, this school year is ending now. CCSD has 3,422 kindergarten students, and they are the class of 2035. Many of them have shared their dreams with me. They have written to me expressing their dreams. They have drawn pictures of their dreams. They have sang to me about their dreams. They have stood on stage in front of microphones and told me their dreams. And they have talked about their dreams with their parents and with their teachers in front of me. And as you saw in the video, these 5-year-olds have sat in circles with me, demonstrating that they have the capacity, the foresight, and the enthusiasm to dream big, big dreams. So as South Carolina continues to give birth to its economic opportunities, please join me in creating a powerful network of dream makers that will ensure that the class of 2035 will not be left behind when they graduate from CCSD in 12 years from now, but rather will be on the verge of making their dreams come true. Thank you. And now we'll have a close out with a musical selection from the song is A Million Dreams from the Charleston County School of the Arts Orchestra and Vocal Majors.
I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home.
They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say that I've lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design.
There's a house we can build. Every room inside is filled with things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I've lost my mind. I don't care if they call us crazy. Run away to a world that we
Wow, well, I'm overcome with emotion again. Maybe I just need medication for that. Oh, let's give them another round of applause. And to Sir Robin Rogers, thank you for your dedication all these years. Dr. Selby, you're amazing. Thank you to the orchestra as well. To Dr. Cook and the great family here at SOA, we appreciate you welcoming us today. We appreciate you coming to the wonderful communications office led by Vanessa Denny, Maggie Dangerfield, all of our friends there. Thank you for all you did and your tireless efforts to put together this morning. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for the message. Board members, we're glad you're here again. Thank you all, and thank you for your vision as we look toward the dreams and making them a reality for all of our students. Enjoy the day, enjoy the rest of the year, and if you're graduating, hoorah, isn't that right, Captain? Congratulations. Best wishes to you and your families. Thank you again.